going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Tuffy Talk here. It's going to be a fun one tonight, I think. It's a little bit different than we typically do. We've done lately, at least.
Right.
We've done these kind of episodes in the past, but it'd be good. We thought it'd be kind of good to get some fans back on the episode, and just NC State fans to talk about just fun stuff. Just make it a good, fun discussion. Nothing serious to talk about other than just to get some other fans on the channel. So we have got Winston Lohman and Brian Price here. And guys, thank you so much for tuning into our channel and all that, and also just coming on tonight.
We got to tell them how they got here. How did we pick Brian and Winston to be our guest tonight, right? So
I bribed Leighton, so it's fine.
Well, hey, shh, we don't talk about that. We ran a little giveaway on Twitter, and if you're not following us on Twitter, you should be, because we are the king of giveaways, right? Whether it's some swag, tickets, and even guest appearances, and that's how we got Winston and Brian. So, Macon, I would love to be on the episode. Wait, I am on the episode. Never mind, Macon, back to you.
Yes, exactly. It's a great segue. So, I think we're going to do this again, and kind of like we do typical two-part kind of thing we do a lot of times, and this first one, really, I just want to kind of just get to know Winston and Brian and their stories, where they're living at right now, and what their connections to NC State, good memories they have. We'll kind of touch into some specific stuff there, but since he logged on first, I'm going to go with Winston. So Winston, man, you told us off-site that you are living not in Raleigh, not in North Carolina, not even in the Eastern time zone. Where are you at, man?
Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Sioux Falls. So, to me, I should have known it was somewhere out there because I see the antlers in the back and I see the nice painting there. So, I should have known it was somewhere in the mountains out west, somewhere like that. So, Sioux Falls. Why Sioux Falls?
My wife's from here. We met while she was at grad school at UNCG. So I'm
glad you finished to put the G on that end of that.
UNCG Greensboro.
G.
I was living in Raleigh at the time. She was at UNCG, and we met, and I fell in love. She settled, and we decided to move out here to South Dakota, where her whole family is and where her job brought her. And so I didn't really have anything to keep me there. So here we are, 3 kids later, 9 years of marriage.
That's awesome. That's kind of cool.
Well, hold on. What year did you graduate?
I did not graduate from NC State.
There we go.
I am not an NC State grad. I JUCO route, played basketball at junior college at Guilford Technical Community College. Their inaugural basketball team. Was the captain with a guy named Spud. And
last name Webb?
No. He went by Spud. It's been so long now.
Does he live in Idaho now?
No, I think he's in the Charlotte area. You're right. But just fell in love with Raleigh when I moved out there in 2010. Had some buddies of mine from high school. Went to Wesleyan Christian Academy, which I'm sure y'all probably heard of. Kind of more of a basketball factory now. Will Myers played baseball there, which I'm sure everybody knows Will Myers.
You said what part was it that Wesleyan Christian Academy? Where was that at?
High Point. So that's in High Point, North Carolina.
That's where I live, man. That's where I live, man.
So I drove down was it Wendell Road all the time?
Wendell?
High Point Road, Wendell Road, High Point Road, Jamestown. But two of my buddies I graduated with from high school, Travis High and Chris Engel, both played baseball for State. So I had connections there.
Know those names. Okay.
And then I actually was an assistant AAU basketball coach for a walk-on, Kendall Smith.
That's pretty cool.
So I have some cool connections with NC State. And then my mentor, who graduated from State in the 80s, my first Carter Finley experience was Tony Baker. So really kind of cool back in about 2005 to see him play.
So you were the early 2000s or mid 2000s. That was when you fell in love with NC State.
Absolutely. And then 2010s is really when it kind of hit me when I moved to Raleigh. So I moved to Raleigh in about 2010. Needed a change, fell in love with the area. And then my roommate at the time went to NC State or graduated from NC State. So I was he had season tickets. So we were at every game together for about 4 years.
It's awesome.
So
Brian, let's push it to Brian. So Brian, where are you at? Are you living here in this area? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm in Raleigh. So been back in Raleigh 9 years now. So, but kind of a funny story. Sioux Falls used to be. I lived in Nebraska for 2 years after I was a recruiter, and Sioux Falls was part of my territory. So I've spent many a night in Sioux Falls. So
that's cool.
That's cool. Awesome. Yeah. So what year? So you did not graduate from state, Winston. Brian, did you graduate from state?
I did. I finished in '99. I was a textile chemistry major. Was president of the Student Wolfpack Club for 3 years while I was here. My first state game, a neighbor in Wilmington actually brought me up to the Jimmy V speech game. So if you can't fall in love,
93.
Yeah. So if you can't fall in love with state with that speech, I mean, what are you doing here?
That's pretty cool. Right. So you were there when he gave the speech.
I was there when he gave the speech.
That is really
That's
cool,
amazing.
Actually.
Yeah. And in full disclosure, Brian and I, in fact, I've met Brian and Winston both in person. And I saw Brian's post on Facebook on Sunday about the speech. And I hadn't even heard about it until he posted that. And I couldn't imagine being in the presence of Jimmy V. I saw him coach when I was like a snot-nosed, like 8-9-year-old, so didn't have the appreciation that I have for it now. But I guess for me, Brian, so like how old were you at that game roughly?
I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay, so it definitely had a lasting type of impression on you.
About 16 or so, 15, 16.
Yeah. I'm ashamed to admit it. I was an obnoxious Tar Heel fan growing up, and that made me realize the mistakes of my ways pretty quick. So,
okay, hey, sometimes people take a little longer to figure it out. At least you figured it out in high school. So,
exactly.
Hey, my dad's story was he was not a big Carolina fan growing up, but he said he liked Carolina. He went to state. My dad was from 82 to 88, I think. And so his freshman year at state was 82 to 83. And they won the basketball tournament. They won the national title there. And my dad's like, after that, there was no turning back, right? So,
right.
Yeah, so I can get that.
So for me, Brian, what made you? Was it the major? Was it something like before that? Then you just figured out the major. Like how did you end up at state?
So actually, my boss, after I worked at state, he actually came to my high school and did the recruiting spiel for the College of Textiles, and I enjoyed the fact that College of Textiles was small; it was like 1,000 students, but state was 30, so it kind of got the best of both worlds, big and little.
Sure.
Got the one-on-one attention, and that really made me think that was a good place for me. And 4 years later, walking out with a degree and a job. So.
Right. So I guess we'll jump back over to you, Winston. What is your first memory? Like, obviously, you spent time in the Raleigh area with all your buddies. What's the first sporting event that you can definitively remember? Good, bad, or indifferent, because, as state fans, we experience the full realm of fandom. But what's like your first memory of going to an event?
That kind of stuck with me. Probably 2012 when we beat FSU. I was there.
Wow.
I mean, the crowd, just the atmosphere, just everything.
Mm-hmm.
So were you a season ticket holder by chance? Or?
My roommate was, so he had the tickets.
I'm curious how you got the ticket. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, he had season tickets, so we went to the games. He didn't ever have anybody go with him. He wasn't married. He just always had 2 tickets, and he always just gave me his extra ticket. So it just went, and we would go every game when I didn't have to work. but I was at that game and just the environment, it's nuts, to say the least.
So my story with that particular game, that was probably my most memorable game too. And I was a student at the time there. And I remember the game, my parents wanted me to take my brother, who's 7 years younger than me, to a game. And I was like, just that season, I was like, well, I can take it to the game before, like a game before, which was like, we're playing Citadel. And I'm thinking it'll be a win and it should be pretty easy. But he couldn't go for some reason, like last minute that week. But he was like, it's like, well, I guess I could take him to see us like in the Florida State game, but we were going to get whooped. And
thumped.
Yeah, I took him, and long story short, we had him borrow one of my buddy's student ID passes. My brother was, I was 20 or 19 or something like that, and my brother's 13, 12. He doesn't look like a college student, and so these security guards, that's a whole different story. But he gets in, and obviously we win. It goes bananas. It's like one of the greatest memories me and him have. I got a picture of me and him at the game. I know what you're talking about, man. That game, if you weren't a State fan after that game, like you weren't going to be, kind of thing.
No.
Yeah. What about you, Brian? I mean, obviously you mentioned the 93 Jimmy V speech with the 10-year reunion of 83, but I guess maybe a college experience, or like what was your first game that you just like, okay, this is my squad? You know
so
what I mean?
I guess freshman year was Les Robinson's last basketball coaching.
Okay. So you dodged a bullet there. You only had to deal with 1 year of it.
But Carolina came in number one in the country. It snowed the morning of that game, and those of us in the student Wolfpack Club back in the day, it was get there, line up whenever you can. Whoever was there first dibs. So my roommate or a good friend of mine, we're like, we're going to get out there at 7 a.m, and the game was at 9 or 7. I can't remember. So we literally spent 12, 14 hours outside in the snow and end up beating the number one team in the nation. So that was pretty awesome as a first home game against Carolina in basketball.
I remember the state played Carolina in 2013, I think it was, and they were highly ranked. Or maybe here was State was ranked, I think 20. That was the C.J. Leslie, Lorenzo Brown, Scott Wood, Richard Howell team. T.J. Warren's on that team as well. And I remember we went up by like 20 something on them, and the roof like blew off the place. Yeah. And I remember I was in the Student Wolfpack Club at that time, and I remember you couldn't go on PNC property until like 5 hours, something like beforehand or whatever it was. And I remember there'd be like 200 students like standing on Trinity at the property line, and they were looking at the clock and then all of a sudden it was like the dam broke, and everybody just runs from Trinity to the PNC Arena to go wait in line.
That's a good
and
job.
It wasn't snowing, but it had like frozen roads, and there was snow on the ground. I remember there were ice on the ground. And I just remember similar story, but not like, I don't know, not number one Carolina.
No, that's awesome. That's insane. Like, so Winston and I are in the same boat. Like, we didn't go to State. We're just the 1% fans that you hear about. But full disclosure, my first Carolina basketball game was this year. Like, I'd never been to a Carolina State basketball game.
Really? I'm surprised about that. Right?
I know. It's just the way it works out, because that game is typically like either a midweek 9:00 game or a weekend game. Like, it just never worked out for me. But yeah.
You're here enough. Come on, just –
What's that?
So you're here enough. Just come on back down.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But
yeah.
I guess for me, what is the one State tradition that whether it might be like we didn't invent cutting the nets down, but we were the first to basically do it in college. Right. What's something that you appreciate that we can lay claim to with regards to NC State? And it doesn't even have to necessarily be in the sporting world, but since this is a sporting podcast, is there something that kind of resonates with you guys? Either one wants to take it first, go for it.
I mean, I guess the recent tradition, I like putting the rings in the bell tower, everybody's class ring in the bell tower. I wish they would have done that when I was here. Because I think they've done a much better job at marketing the ring program. Because when I was there, you could get it from 4 or 5 different companies. It didn't matter. But then when Jostens took it over, made one similar ring for everybody, they actually said you can send your old ring back and we'll switch it to the new one. And that's what I did. I mean, and I got it, no cost. They just were like, hey, here you go. So
That's cool.
I appreciate that one a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a really good one. I don't know if my ring did that whole ceremony tradition. I think it did, but I know there's a part of it where you can actually go and put it inside. I definitely did not do that, but I think mine still did the whole staying overnight. I don't know if it did or not. I think it did though, but that is a really cool one. That's not one that you hear a lot, and I actually really like that answer.
Yeah. What about you?
My ring didn't make it either. It's fine.
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flightland's Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flightland's Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flightland's Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flightlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
Yeah. I guess for me, I really love, especially being outside. Like, I don't want to call myself an outsider, but I'm an outsider, right? Like, sure. I didn't go. For me, lighting the bell tower red, just there's something about it. Getting that big win, and you see it, and then the players are starting to go to the bell tower. And being a part of and getting with the fans, especially this past year with the basketball team. You saw it almost every game. Yeah. To me, you want to see that, especially like Big T at this point. T, he's always there. He's always trying to interact with the fans. Same thing with DJ. Like, you didn't see that 10 years ago. With CJ
you
Leslie.
really
Don't
didn't.
get me wrong.
Unless
you
it was unless it was a big, I think. I want to say, I don't know if they did that when we beat like Carolina, that specific game or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. Or like
it's
Duke.
Very possible.
Duke. But yeah, it's not like it has been lately. The culture has kind of built back up to that point, or maybe it's built up to something new, I guess.
Or even Dave Dorn being out drinking on a red Solo cup with the fans after a big win. Like that, you love to see that culture on the sports side of your high profile people and players and coaches intertwining with the community and with the fans. Mm-hmm. Love it.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something to be said about tradition and rituals and routines and all of that to just commemorate and to understand what it means to be a part of NC State. Right. And, again, we try to do things, whether it's playing wagon wheel at the beginning of the fourth quarter or don't stop believing or whatever that is. But to me, that's just in-game stuff. To me, that's not a tradition, right? Yeah. And then, something like what Iowa does, waving to the Children's Hospital, like things like that, where like you can be known on the national stage for doing something, right? Whether it's like Auburn throwing the toilet paper in the trees at I forgot the name of their. Yep, there you go. So I think there's something to be said with the college game because you don't get that in professionals. So I love the pageantry, if you will, of college sports, and I think that's what makes college sports so unique.
Yeah, I think for me, I think from an NC State sports tradition thing or a tradition thing that I think I like to, it's not a tradition, but it's a small thing. I do like the way we come out of the tunnel now. It's not a tradition, but I do like the way they come out of the tunnel now. They kind of have the swaying look. It kind of helps with the coming out of the den. I like that. As a side thing, I think it's not really sports related, but it is an NC State kind of related. I kind of think the Krispy Kreme challenge is kind of cool now.
Right? Yeah,
it's unique, right? People from like all over the country will come in and do that now, and that's the NC State thing.
That's a good one, actually, Macon. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a. I don't know. I know Greg and I went to the state game for football at Clemson last past season with Leighton as well, and my brother Amos. And one thing we noticed and we like talked about a lot was how during the game, one, they had really good production. Just a compliment to them, but the traditions that they seem to be like 100% embraced as a fan base. I remember, I think I leaned over to Leighton. I think, Greg, you were sitting somewhere else, weren't you?
Yeah, I was
you were sitting really close. Yeah. I remember thinking, like, this is what I think one thing state I feel like needs to grow in is there's not a lot of tradition in like the in game. I like another one I can think of is for basketball near the end of the game or the end of the second half where the trumpets come out and they clap really fast and then they come back to their seat and everybody just kind of holds their hands up and waits. And then bum bum bum, bum, bum. I think that's a really cool thing to do, but there's more. I think particularly with football that we could do that would be. I don't know what that would look like, but I think that would be pretty cool to figure some more things out. But yeah, that's kind of a good, curious question for you guys. I'm glad Greg asked that question. I guess one question. Go ahead,
Brian's got something. What do you got, Brian?
Say, we got to make sure the students are still in the seats to have a tradition in the fourth quarter.
There you go. I mean, that's real talk, though, right? So I think that's kind of where I wanted to take the conversation to, actually, is that you brought that up. What is your – because, Brian, and even you being former students, I just don't remember, like, when I was younger, and I haven't probably – well, now I've gone to more games, but not pre Dave Doran. I don't remember people leaving at halftime ever being a thing until within the last 10 or 15 years. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Well, I think Brian's have to answer that question, not me.
I mean, when I was in school, I mean, the student parking was the southeast lot. So
right.
Now that, it keeps getting pushed further and further out, now it's out at the fairgrounds. I mean, I get if you want to leave at halftime and go have a beer or a Coke or whatever you're going to do at halftime, it's a heck of a lot further walk to get back in. So, I mean, I get it. I just wish they'd stay because it makes a big difference. I mean, recruits have talked about it. Obviously, Coach Doran talked about it.
Do you have an opinion on the pass outs? Like, should they end them? In your opinion?
I mean, I've never gone out for halftime. I mean,
I have never either.
So I mean, I've got people that I sit with. They go out every game. It's just a preference thing. Personally,
is that the reason they're going to get a drink or something? Right. That's the reason.
And that's a lot of them. They go out and have a drink, or one guy smokes, so he goes out and have a smoke. Since you can't smoke in the stadium, which I appreciate. But I mean, personally, I wish. It's a revenue stream to me if they would sell them, because for those that don't ever go, who cares? But for those that do, hey, charge an extra $10 a game or whatever it is,
right?
And I mean that's going to add up.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Because you want to de-incentivize it, right? Not incentivize it, and so when they have free reign to come and go. Depending on the situation, they may or may not come back. And take an example, and it was been brought up, and we don't need to rehash all the details behind it, but that Virginia Tech game, you're down 21-3, people roll out at halftime because it's a Thursday night game. And look, everyone pays their ticket price and they can do whatever they want to do and have whatever excuse they want to have. And that's fine. That's what makes this country great. But if you want to come back, you're going to pay $10 to come back in, so either you stay or pay the price, or just stay out, and I'm with you. And
it's not a bad idea.
No, it's not. It's not, because then, go ahead, Winston.
Or kind of on top of that, or you say if you're not back by the kickoff, you're paying $10 to get back in.
Sure,
that's how you say before halftime. You can go. If you come before the kickoff of the second half, no charge. But if you're coming back after, it's a $10 entry fee.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. They kind of say we don't want to charge you second, but if you're not going to be here by this kickoff, we got to do something. Yeah,
because at the end of the day, and Brian, you hit it on the head. It's it's noticed. The recruits have always said it. In fact, I think it was 2 years. I think it was the first year back from the pandemic. So I guess it was the 21 season. The couple, I don't remember the two players that were sitting on the sidelines. They were doing like a little skit, ended up on Twitter. And they basically made the point is like, hey, we wish butts were back in the seats for kickoff. Right. And it was a joke. But when you make jokes,
really.
There's usually a level of truth to it. So it's definitely noticed on more than one occasion. And I believe Coach Dorn, someone had posted this, and I don't know how true it is. And if Coach Dorn is saying it at one of the coaching caravans, it's probably true, because I don't see why he would need to spread false stuff. But the rumor, the story goes that Coach Dorn said that he actually lost Dexter Lawrence because of that very reason.
Yep.
At one of the coaching caravans. So think about that. You have a 5-star recruit that, if you have your tails back in the seats, you potentially get a 5-star recruit, right? Because
you're actually influencing a recruit's opinion.
Right. And we keep saying, look, if we get one 5-star, then you get a second 5-star, and then a third 5-star. It just takes one or two guys to get that gravy train going. So I just kind of want to know your guys' thoughts on those type of things, because it's more about the recruiting side. Like, what do you feel that NC State needs to do to start landing these recruits that, like, we talk about it on the podcast. We're right in the hunt for these guys that have Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, Florida, whatever it is, but we're not landing them. So kind of give me you guys' thoughts on the state of recruiting.
Personally speaking, it's kind of, you got to win. I mean, players want to play for, whether they sit on the bench or not, want a ring, right? That's why they play the game, to get rings and go to the NFL. Essentially, so, we want to win. Yeah. So I, which it's kind of a touchy subject in my opinion, because you got to win, but yet people got to be in the seats, because if we're not in seats, and take basketball this past year, it didn't start to fill up until the second half of the season.
Yeah, it was brutal the first half.
School recruit.
But I will say, I think the difference there is your basketball for NC State tends to get the 4 stars and 5 stars on average more than your football teams do. So I think the talent level on NC State's basketball team is on average better against their competition than your football team is. And I hear you on the wins. Like, I'm not disagreeing with the wins thing.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, you're saying, well, we need wins, but it's going to be much harder to get those wins when you've got 3 stars all the time versus 4 and 5 stars all the time.
But I also think some of these recruits are starting to see that, take some of our guys that have come in 3 stars and now are first, second round.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, I'm a big recruiting guy. And you definitely start hearing that now. I think the fact that you're seeing some of these quotes from interviews, like, guys like Inside Pack Sports, Pack Pride, all these Wolfpacker, they're all getting some guys are legitimately saying state coaches develop players. And that's a huge deal, in my opinion, that these high school kids even notice that. I think for me, like we've talked about on our show before, I think even still getting those 4-star, 5-star guys, I think it comes back to the pass out things we were talking about earlier. Like, you got a lot of these fans who are complaining, oh, we need wins and we'll come back in seats. And you start winning games, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't think it's going to change, really. They'll say this is the reason what we need, and it actually doesn't.
Right.
Even if they do, it doesn't matter. For me, I think it goes back to the NIL stuff. Like, I think now I really hate it. I don't like that. I know a lot of the players do, because they get, I know there's some good things that come with it, but generally speaking, I hate it. I don't like it.
What about
if you want to play that game, you're going to have to start doing this now. And that comes down to fans who say, well, once we start winning, then I'll start, giving money or whatever. And it's like, well, we've had 4 or 5 9-win seasons. And what do you want? Do you want trophies every year, or what do you want, kind of thing?
Yeah. What about you, Brian? What are your thoughts on all of that? Because
I'm like Macon, I'm not an NIL fan, but I realize it's what it is today. I'm actually really excited to see what the Savage Wolves event's going to be here in a couple of days. I'm not going, but I'm interested to. I mean, that'd be a really cool thing to go to. But that was a little rich for my blood. So,
Oh yeah.
but I mean, I think it's one of those things that more fans have got to step up, or else we're not. Because that's when Alabama can throw 100,000 or 500,000 or whatever to a guy, or A&M, or
Whoever
whatever,
it may be,
Miami.
right? Yep.
They're people. Money talks. I mean, if somebody offered me $500,000 versus another place offered me 25, I know where I'm probably going to go. So
Right. So
I think what it comes down to is I think fans need to realize it's not like, hey, you need to be giving $500 out of your pocket for us to get recruits. I think what I've seen from these guys who run the Savage Wolves or Pack of Wolves, that they really are trying to drive the message across. Like, you think that $20 won't matter. Like, you guys think there's no way $20 can impact. But if every fan gave $20, it would multiply to be a lot that they could work with. And it's like, you think it doesn't matter, but it can make a huge difference.
I've said it. If everyone at Carter Finley gave an extra $20, that's like $500,000.
Right.
That's not good.
Imagine what you could do with some of these recruits with $500,000, like you're saying. So
yeah. So anyway, I think that's a good place to pause right there for episode 1.
Yeah.
We'll definitely jump in on some more of these topics and just kind of find out a little bit more about some of the sports that Brian and Winston both enjoy and their passions of on in NC State. So if you're not following us on any of our social medias, one, if you did, you might be here right now. So go out and follow us on Twitter, hit the like button, subscribe button, do all that fun stuff here on YouTube. And maybe one day you could be as cool as Winston and Brian. So come on back for part 2. And as always, go Pack.